Welcome to Make Today Count, your 20 minutes of fresh conversation served up to inform, educate and inspire an abundant life. I'm your host Ross Dean, and each episode I chat to thought leaders, influencers and experts in their game who all have one thing in common: the desire to go that extra mile, pushing against the status quo to create a richer life for both themselves and those around them, powered by compassion and driven by the need to leave the world that little bit better than when they arrived. Okay, hi guys, and welcome back to the new episode of Make Today Count. And today we've got Alex Cameron. Alex, how are you?
I'm very well, Ross. Thank you very much for having me. It's great to be here.
No, I'm really looking forward to this conversation. You know, we've been friends for quite a while now, a good few years, and
indeed.
You know, we've kind of seen both of our businesses and what we've been doing go through different kind of seasons, I guess.
Very much.
But I really wanted to get you on the show today to talk about all the exciting things that you're doing at the moment around kind of commercial film and working with businesses and a lot of the training that you're offering to businesses as well. And in particular, what's been really nice is that we've been able to select a subject today, which I think may be something that people may not have come across before. And maybe they have, but maybe they weren't aware of it at the time. Maybe they've seen it, other businesses using it and kind of thought, oh, that's really interesting in what they're doing. But before we get into that, what I'd love to do is for, you know, if people haven't come across you or the work you've done before, you just give us a bit of a background of kind of, I guess your background and how you come to being where you are today.
Yeah, sure. It's a sort of long and winding road, really, that sort of led me to here. But essentially, we started very early on. Well, comes nearly 12 or so years ago now, doing weddings, doing wedding filmmaking and wedding videography, as you'd like to call it, possibly. And we got into that purely because I had a video camera, because I used to film, I play golf and I used to film my golf swing, and a friend of ours turned around and said, oh, you play golf and you've got a camera and you could do our wedding. It's like, okay, I don't know how all those things go together, but fair enough. We'll give it a go. And I tried and it was great. And actually I had my worst ever wedding experience at the same time I had my first and best ever wedding experience in that respect, because we were filming and it was just a horrible little camcorder that I was holding, and I was up at the front, and just as their vows started, the camera went dead. It still was recording audio, but the picture went, and I didn't know what I was doing. I was very green at the time and didn't know what was going on, but just kept going. And I told them afterwards and explained they were fine. They were actually really understanding. We still had the audio and we still put something together for them that at the end they watched it back and like, wow, we love this. And it was so satisfying and gratifying, sort of putting something together that didn't exist before I hit record. Missed half of it. But the point is that we had this amazing experience where they were loving what we'd done, and I was really happy that I'd given them something of value that they really enjoyed and would have forever. And it just sort of snowballed from there, because we had two other friends getting married in a very short space of time. And I thought, right, let's do this. So started a filmmaking company doing weddings, and we've been doing that, as I say, 12 years now. But about 3 years ago, I realized, no, not now, 4 years ago now, I realized that I needed to move into commercial side of things, because whilst weddings are fantastic, and we still do a few weddings now, from time to time, but I've got 3 small children, and the point with that is that weddings weren't conducive to a family lifestyle, because we were working all the way through the summer, every weekend, and it just didn't make sense. So I thought, well, let's transition now, so that when the kids are at school, we can start thinking about being available for them when they're off, and I can be with them and be part of their life. So commercial filmmaking is where it was. And actually it was a bit of an opportunity, because I think commercial filmmaking, and I say commercial filmmaking, I mean businesses, really, any businesses that are using video for their marketing efforts, particularly actually some of the smaller companies and brands and businesses around, because they don't often, or they didn't always have access to high quality production, because they'd have to go to big London agencies. So we said, well, we're doing some pretty impressive stuff over here from a wedding point of view in terms of the quality and the production level that we're producing. Let's see if we can shift this into the commercial world. And we've done that. And sort of 4 years later, we're still here. And that was really one of the sort of desires for me, is that I have a strong belief that video has the power to shift perception and change and encourage action in a way that you just can't do with just standard text or photos alone. So from a business's point of view, it's a great way of connecting with their audience and calling them to action in some form or another, which is essentially what we're trying to do with marketing. So that was how it all sort of shifted across. And yeah, it's been going well sort of ever since. I mean, we still do some very basic sort of video production when, we have clients who come in and just say, we just want this. Please point the camera here and film it. That's fine.
Yeah.
So, okay, that's not a problem at all. But it's not really the crux of what we like to do. We like to try and go that little bit deeper. And this is where we start coming into storytelling and what that is exactly.
Yeah. And I guess for a lot of people in the creative fields, they often kind of go into kind of one niche and they kind of move into other ones just because how their lives and stuff take them. What did you think you got from the sort of all the wedding work that you did? Was that super helpful in kind of setting up to do the commercial work later on?
Well, it was, and it's funny because a lot of people actually look down on you as a wedding videographer sometimes, especially when you first transition over. Because they kind of go, oh, you're just a wedding videographer. Like, you're not serious about what you do. It's like, yeah, no, but we know what we're doing. And you only have to look at the quality of the work to know that we know what we're doing. But what weddings gives you, in my opinion, is first of all, the ability to work with customers, with your clients, because you have to be obviously, front facing, very understanding and sympathetic at the time. There's all sorts of things going on. It's this person's amazing moment in their life that you have to kind of sometimes rein them in, sometimes let them go. You've got to be able to manage people. So that's really helpful. But also you're working under great pressure. We don't get a chance to go, cut, let's do that again. We've got to get that. The first time that they walk up together, the aisle up together as husband and wife, we've got to get that. The first time they kiss, we've got to get that. First time they first dance, do speeches, it's all got to be done live, and you've got to work quickly because there's not a lot of time in the day, and you've got to do it to the very highest level you possibly can. So actually, when it comes to commercial work, often we've got a lot of time to work out what we're trying to do. We've got people who are invested in us, making sure it's absolutely perfect. So they're almost willing to give us the time because they can. So weddings has just enabled us to appreciate what working under pressure feels like. And I think it's made us better filmmakers as a result, because we have to be a little bit more reactive. We have to sort of be thinking ahead to what's coming and preempt things that are happening or going to happen. So if you can do that in a commercial world as well, it helps you start to troubleshoot and problem solve. And I think actually filmmaking is a lot about problem solving, because nothing ever quite goes as exactly as you imagined it. And so it's quite nice to be able to, if you have a problem that pops up, to be able to tack and change direction, which you wouldn't be able to do if you maybe didn't have that expertise or that experience of working under pressure.
Yeah, absolutely agree. Speaking from the kind of the photography side of things, that I've always said that wedding photography is the kind of the greatest boot camp you could ever take yourself through.
Yes.
in photography, because if you think about it, you're doing portrait work with the bride and groom, you're doing product work when you're doing rings or details, you're doing landscape work when you're doing the venue or the surrounding areas, and I think when you look at it like that, you just get such a good ground, and that enables you to go and move on to other things, or maybe that time allows you to kind of pick out what you really love to do, which aspects of that sort of thing you really love to do, and then go on to do that. So yeah, absolutely agree. It's a great thing to kind of get your teeth into. But the conversation today is quite an interesting one, in that when we had a chat before and we sort of thought about how can we give value to the listeners around some of this stuff, and what I didn't want to do is just to go into the nuts and bolts of how to create videos or that kind of thing, because I think there's a lot of content already around that sort of stuff, and people can kind of find that on YouTube or whatever. But the idea that you had, and that we thought was a good one, was talking about storytelling. And I think for a lot of people, when maybe they're thinking about getting a video created, maybe for their business, they kind of have a good idea as to maybe what they want it to look like. Maybe they've seen examples of stuff that they kind of resonated with them, or maybe they've seen adverts on TV or things like that, and they thought, oh, I really like that kind of style of things. But would you agree that it's kind of at the crux of that, it all bears down on kind of like what's at the core of that video and what are we trying to convey?
Absolutely.
And with that, so when we talk about storytelling, what do you think it really kind of means to, as far as you're concerned, when it comes to creating kind of these marketing efforts for our business?
Well, I think so. Storytelling is one of these words that often gets thrown around a little bit. and not everybody, I think, necessarily uses it fully understanding what it's supposed to do. But it's about going deeper. Excuse me. A lot of the time, it's about going a little bit deeper with things, rather than just taking things at the surface level, rather than just sort of going, walking in, assessing something, and going, oh, that's what we're shooting then. It's actually about going, well, hang on, is there something more powerful here? Is there something more remarkable here that actually we can leverage to get a stronger connection with our audience? And to give it a physical definition as such, story is a retelling of events, real or imagined, often told from a single perspective. So that's the kind of what storytelling or story is. And it's quite important. The retelling of events is one that's quite an important thing, because again, you've got to remember, we're all hardwired to story. We have, from a very early age, it's like, right, let's have story time, let's have books. We've been reading Once Upon a Time, Are You Sitting Comfortably, all that sort of stuff. From such an early age, we're hardwired to listen to story. Our bodies and our minds, we just understand, okay, story, we listen to this. And therefore, we're automatically more engaged than, say, adverts, in the traditional sense of an advert. Buy this product, it's amazing. It doesn't resonate with us quite as much as someone telling a story. And stories are very powerful for a couple of reasons, but they have an amazing power to move people emotionally. And that's what helps shift perspectives and inspire the action that we're needing from people. And we have, well, in fairness, we follow and I should shout them out, we follow a couple of guys who come up with a concept of storytelling and how to approach storytelling. It's called the Muse process.
Okay.
And it's developed by some guys called Muse Storytelling. And some very, very clever people based over in Canada. Patrick Moreau is the founder. He's actually a psychology major, or he was, and he kind of quit during university to do story and do video production. And they've been doing things for the NFL, the Marriott, all sorts of, Four Seasons, really, really high end sort of stuff now. But they came up with this sort of main core principle of storytelling, and we're avid participants in that. We actually are practitioners in it. So a little bit like a martial art, someone comes up with this core concept, and we very much embodied it, and we're now building on that to make it our own thing. But they essentially have this saying, which is move the heart to guide the mind. If you're able to connect with someone emotionally, you're way more likely to get them to do something. And that's so true. If you look at the really good adverts that you've done today, they all focus deeply on storytelling. And I'm talking about the John Lewis adverts that we get at Christmas. And there are other retail outlets available. But yeah, Sainsbury's, Tesco's, all these people, the reason they're focusing on those aspects is because they know that's what makes a difference. That's how they can actually inspire real action, rather than just bringing up a product, telling you a price, and letting you make up your own mind. They're really trying to engage with you on a different level, and that's because story is transportational. Basically, there's a psychological concept called narrative transportation. And that is when, and you've all had this, we've all experienced it, when you're so immersed in a particular moment because you're very connected and engaged with it, that you start to forget and not see essentially your physical surroundings quite so much. You're unaware of the doorbell ringing. You're unaware that someone's been talking to you for 10 minutes because you're just so engrossed in what it is that you're listening to or connecting with. So it's this complete immersion and the connection that storytelling creates, which creates this narrative transportation. And the more transported you can be by a particular story, the more likely you are to take on the actions and beliefs that the story is trying to convey. So it's just completely unmatched, really, in its ability to connect with an audience in a way that you couldn't. In a way, and think about it. They all say, and I'm sure you've probably heard sales talk where they say, 80% of sales is emotional and 20% is logic. We decide we want something because we want it, and then we back it up with an actual need for why we have it. And that's exactly what story's playing on as well here, because we're talking to that 80% of the person who goes, yeah, I want that. And then sort of encouraging them to make up a reason why they should go and buy it. So they'll logically decide on that once they've been connected emotionally. So that's exactly why we are big advocates of it. And we try and encourage businesses to go that little bit deeper.
Yeah. I mean, that's so true. Exactly what you said there about, from since we were born, we've consistently grown up with story, whether it's through, mum and dad having story time at bed, through school, through TV, cartoons, all that kind of stuff. And even to now, I think we can all, if we think about it, we could all probably think of someone who maybe we know, maybe we work with, that's just really compelling in, when they talk. And maybe probably that's because they tell stories when they're in conversation. There's always those people that you kind of meet with at networking events where you sort of think, I don't know what it is about this person, but I really feel compelled to listen to them. And usually that's because they're not just telling the facts or what they do, they're kind of telling stories around their life, which then leads them to other things. And exactly right.
Absolutely. And it's about letting your audience be the witness. It's about letting them make up their own mind rather. So it's very much a concept of filmmaking, which is show, don't tell. So don't give the audience 4, give them 2 + 2, and then let them work out what the answer is. It's a bit like Inception. I sort of liken it to Inception. If you make your audience believe that they came up with the idea, then they're way more likely to get it to sort of take action on it. So
it's the same with music as well, isn't it? When you listen to, you can listen to music and you can listen to the lyrics, and that will mean a completely different thing from one person to the other, in regards to what that song means. And often, you have interviews with pop stars or rock stars, and the interviewer will say, this song is about this, isn't it? And they'll think, well, is it?
Yeah.
I thought it was about this. Yeah. So it's completely around that interpretation of kind of how we process it, I guess, isn't it?
Absolutely. I do find that I always have a little slight bugbear with music in that. You often listen to a song and you go, oh, this is lovely. The melody's great. It's sort of, light-hearted and fun or energetic. It makes me feel really positive. And then when you listen to the lyrics, they're actually talking about something quite different. And you think, oh, maybe I'm not quite sort of understanding fully what the artist was going through at the time. But and I always wonder if they do it on purpose to kind of like, this is about a sad subject, but if we make it sound nice, at least we'll get some airtime.
Maybe.
But I don't know. I find that particularly, it came back from the wedding world where people used to request a song and they say, oh, could you put this song? And you go, okay, fine, we'll happily put that in if it's something you'd like to put in. Just listen to the lyrics and make me sure it's a right fit. It's a good fit for you. And they'd listen to the lyrics and go, oh no, it's all about him leaving his wife. Yeah, okay, well, maybe we best not put that one in. I was like, just be sure.
And also, that's a great point as well, because sometimes, especially with songs, they can take us back to a previous time, which may not have been, the content may not have been positive, but the feeling that we felt around that time connects us to that song could be the thing, couldn't it? So I think that's what happens a lot with, the example that you give with weddings there. A song could be, reminds them, maybe it was playing at the radio when he proposed to her, or she proposed to him, or whatever. It's really interesting. So for businesses, I guess, when we're talking about this kind of stuff, why is it so important that when we're kind of marketing to prospective clients that we consider storytelling as kind of part of this stuff?
So it's really a case of trying to. Video is just more powerful. It's just way more powerful, as I said to you, but in terms of that connection. And that's what's really important, is because people buy from people. So we want to try and this is why we try and, with our story making, we try and focus it around people. It's very much easier to talk about a person and their experience rather than say a product or a service, because we don't empathize in the same way with products and services that we do with other people like us, human beings, because we understand what they're going through. We have similar feelings to them, and sort of people would say, oh, well, I feel strongly about my cat or my dog or whatever, and it's like, true. We do empathize with pets and animals particularly, but we don't connect in the same way that we do with other people. And if you've ever been watching, you're probably watching these programs like One Born Every Minute or 24 Hours in A&E, something like that, where you've got a real person going through a particular thing. You can relate it to your own life, and so you start to conjure up these impressions of it happening to you, and you get emotional about it. And that's where this power of it comes into. And I think it's very easy. We're all very cynical these days. So it's very easy for a business to go, here's our product. This is why it's so great. And we're telling you it's so great. And here it is. And we all go, I don't believe you. Why? You're just saying that because it's an advert, clearly. So we are quite cynical to things like that. Whereas there's an element of authenticity about things when it's a person telling a story, and it's not just necessarily a talking head of them giving a testimonial, but a genuine story, a genuine situation that's happened to them. And it could be, for example, in business terms, there's a great story that we use a lot called an impact story, which is how a product or service has actually impacted someone's life. So what would often happen to us is we'd have a business come to us and say, oh, we want to sell a air freshener. Just for example, just look down and saw an air freshener. So air freshener. And we'd like to please help us sell this air freshener with a video. It's like, okay, we could make a video just pointing out the air freshener, how wonderful it is. Or we could find someone who's been impacted by this air freshener in some way or another and tell that story and connect on a deeper level. And it's very much about that person. It's about a sort of a transformative service as well. So whoever is this person that we decide to focus our story on will essentially be in position A, and they have a want to get to position B, and they're not sure they can do it. And then what happen is we present the air freshener as that solution, or the service or the product as that solution to moving them from A to B. Because then other people go, oh, I'm at A, I'm also at A, or I'm close to A, I'd like to get to B, maybe this is the right way of doing it. And then all of a sudden you get more engagement, you get more action, as I like to call it. So I think for businesses, it's also actually, believe it or not, quite easy to do, because you don't have to focus too hard on the actual product and how you're going to sell it. You just need to talk to someone. You just need to have a conversation and find out these incredible stories. And we get them all the time with testimonials and things like that. But it's also just quite a nice sort of cathartic exercise almost, to kind of start talking to your customers, start talking to your suppliers, start talking to other people around your business, and collecting all these different sort of points of information and finding out what resonated with other people, and seeing if there's something around that which would help or benefit your business tell a more powerful, remarkable story.
And you mentioned there as well about kind of those first stages of when you kind of work with a client and they come to you with, I'm guessing they probably come to you with thinking they want something, but they actually leave with actually something quite different. Is it just kind of awareness around some of this stuff? You know, in your experience, why do you think some businesses aren't telling as many stories as maybe they could? Is it just that they don't know how to, or what in your experience?
Yeah, I think it's easy to go for the sort of the low-lying fruit. It's easy just to go, here's my product, let's take a photo of the product, or let's take let's video the product, let's talk about my product. I think the problem is, and this is a mistake I think that businesses make, is that often they concentrate too much on themselves. They concentrate too much on their own stuff. And that's probably the most important thing in the world for those people. But actually, it's not the people that they're talking to, that they don't care necessarily. So they've got to focus a little bit more on what their audience are interested in, what their audience problems are, what their audience's needs, wants and desires are. Because if they can focus on those things and sort of gear their filmmaking and their storytelling and their marketing efforts around that. So I think someone said it's about not weeing on your audience. Basically, it's not talking about we all the time. It's talking about other people. And I think that's sometimes a thing that businesses miss. But I think you're right in saying that it's easy. It's an awareness thing. It's not being aware, that actually going deeper, trying to spend a little bit more time finding something that's actually worth saying is the way to go. Is a better way of spending your time and resources. Now, I'm not sort of bemoaning and saying you can't just go, oh, here's a product. That's fine. That's about awareness as well. You know, you've got to get your product out there. But I think to drive real emotional change and connection, you're going to get that through telling a deeper, more interesting, connecting story.
Yeah, I think that's that whole thing about, you know, we don't know what we don't know, and that, you know, if we haven't been in contact with some of these theories or these approaches before, we're just not going to know. You know, business owners are going around doing 100 different things. So, you know, if they're looking at video or other ways to kind of communicate what they're doing, it may not be a knee-jerk thing that they kind of think about. But I'm guessing that what we're talking about is really just taking that deeper level, taking a step back. And I'm guessing that for many businesses, when they choose not to go down to a little bit of a deeper level, they're kind of missing out on some stuff, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And you're missing out on there's a couple of things I think that you end up missing out on, but most importantly, I think you're missing out on sort of getting happier clients. Essentially, I say that because I think you're going to connect on a level that they really get your product, they really get your product or service, and as a result, when they come on board and and it's exactly as you said it was going to be, it's transformational in the fact that it helps them solve that problem that you've pitched in your story, that they're just going to be elated, and you're going to end up with fans essentially rather than customers. People who are absolutely raving about what you do. I also think you miss out on potentially certainly bigger profits as well, but bigger revenue, because I think when you start telling story, and this is probably sort of talking more to I suppose the filmmaking sort of contingent, but when you start telling when you shoot less and ask more questions and tell a deeper story, you actually end up with a situation where you're creating a lot more value for your customer. So, and that would be the same if you're shooting it for yourself. You're going to create way more value around your product if you are intentional about everything that you do. And the old way would have been, as I say, let's hire a guy with a camera to come in and scattergun everything, shoot everything. Let's go into post-production, not having a clear understanding of where we're going with everything. We haven't got a clear purpose, and therefore we spend loads of time in post-production trying to find a story that doesn't quite work, that goes through lots of revisions, and either gets shelved because we don't like it, or goes out and is kind of weak. And I think from a business point of view, and this is talking to businesses who might be doing their internal stuff, it's very easy to just go film, and then spend ages and ages and ages trying to find something that it sort of fits to, rather than going out and being intentional. And this is where the Muse concept, the science of storytelling, as they call it, comes in so well, because it talks about making sure that we have a really clear purpose. And that's the first thing that we do with our customers is we go, right, let's define a clear purpose. What is this supposed to do? What is this supposed to say? And let's find a way of defining that. And we do that through a sort of slightly scientific process, but it's not really, it's just conversation and lots of listening. And I think, also when you have a chance to consider more intentionally all of these things that you're doing, your message becomes more on brand, because you start to forget all of the noise that's going on around you in terms of, we could do this, we could do that, we could do this. But we actually come back to our kind of what we call our keywords, which is our sort of 5 main keywords that we establish at the beginning of any process. And we use those to make intentional decisions that lead us to the purpose. So, we might be filming something to do with, I don't know, lifestyle, something that is kind of natural, and natural maybe, or nature might be one of our keywords. Now, we would use that to be intentional about everything that we do. So let's say something else pops up and it doesn't maybe fit with the 5 keywords, it doesn't really fit in, then it doesn't get done. And that's so empowering, because all of a sudden you're making really intentional decisions to clearly reach a defined purpose that ultimately means that your film will be a success, and it will resonate with people. It will drive action. It will make a difference in terms of bringing in. And the thing is, we're talking about a bit from a business point of view, but it doesn't have to be a business. It could be, let's say, you're just trying to be really passionate about a particular topic or subject in your life that you really want to share with people and get out there. Tell a story about it. Be more remarkable. Go deeper. Find that connecting point and tell that story, because that will definitely bring people over to your story, to your side of thinking, to your perception of things quicker than just saying, this is what I think, it's great, and then not, to give, as I say, you're giving them the answer rather than giving them the kind of question.
Yeah. And I think we've touched upon a few points there. Kind of storytelling, listening's a big thing, obviously, to kind of get some of this stuff out, some of the other things. But what I'm guessing you through consultations and conversations with new clients, or maybe just people that you're not working with, you kind of see content that's kind of making the rounds. What other common mistakes do you kind of see that businesses are kind of making, apart from some of this stuff?
Well, I mean, a lot of people would, probably say, equipment. There's lack of understanding of just how to sort of, if they're doing it internally. And I'm a huge fan of insourcing. I think companies should insource a lot of their production if they can. We need to be creating content all the time these days, and it's not a bad thing at all for a company to take that on if they've got a capable person, capable to in terms of time and ability to go out and shoot some content. But so it's not so much, and equipment these days I don't think is a big thing. I don't think it's necessarily, you can shoot great stuff on your iPhone, things like that. So I don't think that's a big problem. I think the problem is that they just go out without intention. That's probably my biggest thing. They are that sort of they're not putting themselves in their customer's shoes. They're not thinking about the customer so much. They're doing a very good shout out, this is what we do kind of thing, rather than listening about how we help. And I think that's quite a key thing. They're not defining that purpose. So you see messages that are kind of, that's sort of different and mixed to one post to the next, or you go to their social media, then you go to their website, and there's a disconnect because they're using the sort of tone of voice is slightly different. And that's not to say that you can't have a tone of voice change. I think there are certain platforms where you can be a little bit more lighthearted. Like I got onto TikTok the other day, it's like, oh God, I've nearly got pulled down a rabbit hole. But it's quite a fascinating platform where you can be a bit more fun and free, and maybe your website you're not so much. And that's, so you've got there is opportunity for shift of tone. But I think the big thing is a lot of the time they tell, they don't show. So they tell. This is what we do, and they don't sort of allow the audience to they don't invite them in. They kind of almost put up a barrier with their messaging, rather than sort of trying to encourage people to kind of come in and listen. And there are some clear concepts along the way that, talk about how we would structure things. A good story, particularly, you've got to sort of draw people in, you've got to ask a question, you've got to lead that person on a journey. But again, I think focusing on an individual, focusing on a person, tell a single person story. At the end, we said right at the top that storytelling is the retelling of events, real or imagined, from often a single perspective. And what you have along that is you have other people that come along the way that maybe impact on this particular character, who then maybe have their own little story arcs. And we've all seen it in Hollywood. But the point is that when we focus on the individuals involved and people, we're going to get that stronger connection. So we have, again, as part of this whole process, we have a quite clearly defined 4P strategy. So that's people, purpose, place, and plot. And those are very important for a reason. And people is a big part of that whole process. Purpose is another one. And once you've got those locked down, the other bits do start to fall in place. But purpose, again, is what we said about defining a very clear sort of outcome. What do you want to leave the audience with? And again, I think that sometimes gets missed. They're not giving the audience a reason to keep watching. They just start with an advert, and they don't ask a question. They don't try and engage with them and sort of get them thinking, and this is the thing in Hollywood. Often you'll see a character, they'll come in, they'll have their little world that's working for them right now, and then something will happen, and they will ask a question of them. Can they do that? Can they reach their goal? Can they achieve that? Can they solve this? Can they save the world? Whatever it might be, that makes us go, I'm just going to keep watching because I want to know if he does it, or want to know if she does that, or whatever. And that's where we get create engagement, and that comes down to plot and having a good plot. But all of this is done before you even start shooting, which is the great thing. And actually, we spend a lot of our time with our customers. We probably spend about 50% of the whole production budget planning, because we then save an awful amount of time later on. And actually, I think that would serve anyone looking to tell story, businesses or personal stories, that if you actually spend a bit more time planning what you want to do, I appreciate there's a whole thing about, if you don't just get it done, if you don't start just don't get it done, you won't ever do it. But actually, planning is very much part of the process, and sitting down and clearly thinking about the purpose, who you're telling the story about, how you're going to tell it, how does the whole story come together, where you're going to tell it. That's place. Place is important because place delivers authenticity. It makes it feel like a real event that's really happened. So that's key. So getting those things defined before you even start shooting makes a really big difference. And as I said at the beginning, it's about a sort of transportational situation. You want to kind of immerse someone in such a thing that they have to follow. So even if you're looking at an Instagram story level, when you're trying to tell stories, it's great if you can start with one story that then kind of encourages them to click onto the next one, and then the next one, and the next one. And before you know it, they've seen 50 of your stories in a row, and you go, hang on, how'd that just happen? Well, that was narrative transportation. You've just become so undistracted by everything around you. You've just kept going, and they engaged you because you had to find the answer. So you kept going through, and brilliant. That's great storytelling.
Yeah. And I think for a lot of people, they'll be listening to this conversation thinking, this is something I really want to kind of include in kind of what I'm doing with my business. We've kind of spoken about kind of some of the process that you would take clients down if they were to start to work with you. What would be some kind of just some one or two kind of quick tips on kind of knowing where to start if they're kind of, maybe if they're just beginning to kind of craft some of this stuff themselves, just aspects of kind of planning and outlining, I guess, is a good place to start.
Yeah, planning and outlining, kind of having an idea of where you want to go is really good. Just again, what is the purpose? What is it supposed to say? And usually you can do that by thinking about what it is you're trying to say and then describing it in a sentence.
Yeah.
So this is, what we want to say, how we're going to say it, this, and then saying that in one sentence to a friend and seeing what their taking on it is. What are they perceiving when you give them that sentence? What do they kind of, okay, this is it. How is that kind of sinking into them? And that helps you then tweak and refine it. But getting that clear purpose is really, really important. I think we have I suppose as actionable tips, the things I would suggest you do is you find your big three things is one thing, which is quite important. This is storytelling. And we do this when we look to find our sort of what we call our heart of our story. So this is whether it's at the heart of the story could be a service, it could be a product, but most of the time it's a person. So we try and find a person, whether that's, and actually it's interesting because it's not always the CEO of the company. It might be the cleaner who embodies our keywords and our purpose. But we find this person, and it's good to do this as an exercise actually just for your own business, which is to find the big three things. And the big three things are desire, complexity, and uniqueness. So desire is what you want beyond what you already have. This is where we connect emotionally with our audience and we create the empathy. And basically, so it's I've got this. I'm sitting here. I'm quite happy. But what am I really trying to do? World peace. That's my desire. I'd like to achieve world peace. Maybe that's the thing. But this is the point. So you find out what that person's desire might be. The complexity then talks about the why behind that desire. So it's the motivation. Why do they want this thing? So it creates the integrity and the passion and the depth that helps us sustain the connection that that we've already created in the desire. So, and it's interesting because you can do that as I say, as a person. You can do it as a company. You can start thinking about what you want beyond what you've already got, why you want what you want beyond what you've already got, and then your uniqueness, which is the third big thing, and that's about what makes you different, and that's essentially sort of talking about USPs, I suppose, in terms of that's what's going to bring people into this particular story. And what I'd suggest is that once you've spent some time looking at those big three things, you're actually going to start to create quite a nice picture of yourself as a person or your business potentially, and what it is that you're trying to say. And that's a really good thing, is just find your big three things is the first one. And then the other thing I'd say is look at your keywords, try and come up with some keywords. And it's great to have keywords for every single story that you tell. So I think of it from a business point of view, to maybe talk about every single marketing campaign might have a new set of keywords. Every single goal you might be trying to might have different keywords. But when it comes to storytelling, we have some prompts that are really useful to help you. And they are what's most inspiring about this story, what makes this story different, who is the audience for this story, what would you like your audience to feel, and what would you like your audience to do? And those 5 prompts, if you will help you come up with a whole bunch of different ideas. And what you do is this is a great brainstorming activity. You just sit there by yourself or with a team, with a friend. You can send them those prompts, get them to sort of come back to you, and you just literally hammer down together loads of different keywords that start answering those questions, those prompts. You group them all together. And actually what will happen is you'll start to see that themes start to arrive, and you go, okay, we've got a whole load here. And they all kind of similar. Let's define that cluster, that little group of keywords with one particular keyword. Right, that then sits up as one of our keywords. And you'll find ones that make sense and you find ones that don't make sense. There's no right or wrong answer. Just brainstorm, brain dump, throw lots of different ideas out there that answer those prompts. And you'll start to get a real good sense very quickly. It's amazing how fast this happens, of where you're going, the story you're going to try and tell, and how you're going to tell it. And then these keywords will help deliver that purpose that you've sort of defined by, creating a sentence earlier on. And it all kind of cascades from there. But it's a really great starting point. That then starts you on a really good path to then be intentional with everything that you do moving forwards and telling a really powerful story.
And I think, as you mentioned before, a lot of this stuff, we stop ourselves from this stuff because we just kind of don't get going with it. And I think that's another kind of trap that a lot of us kind of fall into. What do you think are some of the kind of the myths we tell ourselves about why we can't do this stuff when it comes to creating video content? Is it just kind of like, I don't have the time? Is it like, businesses maybe just don't feel that they have something viable to say? What are your thoughts?
I think you're right. I think, and it happens and comes, I'm going to say it even happens to us at times. It's writer's block, as they say. You kind of sort of creators thought, I don't know, one of the new coin, but around that, it's kind of, you can very easily get stuck. There's so much going on these days with all these different platforms, all these different, calls, whether it's a personal or business goal that you're trying to achieve. Like, do I do it here? Do I do it there? Where am I talking? How, it's just so hard. There's so much kind of fog that, as I say, it's why we talk about getting intentional with things, because it really does help you become more proactive and get things done. But you're right. A lot of people think, God, and I'm sure there are probably listeners today think, God, that sounds like a lot of work. And you're right. It is not necessarily the easiest thing to do. As I said earlier on, it's not the low-lying fruit. It's not just let's get a camera and film something and see what happens. But I often find that it's a bit like when you buy something that's a cheap product and you realize 5 months down the line, or even less than that, you go, oh, we really should have spent the money and bought the more expensive one. It's a bit like that in terms of investment to your time, and potentially cost. But the point is, if you do it right at the beginning, it will be so much more rewarding later on. And so challenging yourself to go that little bit deeper, it also means that it just sets you out from other people, because a lot of people are doing the easy way of doing things because it's easy to do. So let's show people that actually we're prepared to go a little bit deeper. We're prepared to put a bit more work in. This is something that really is important to us and means a lot to us. And that's what I say. If it's inspired you enough in the first place to create a business or decide to follow a particular course of action, then it's worth spending the time doing it properly. What's that they always used to say? So if it's worth saying, it's worth saying. Or if you haven't got something nice to say, don't say it at all. And I think it's something around that. I think that people often think they haven't got enough time to do that, but really, this is why we love this particular process, this Muse process that we adhere to, and we practice with all our customers, because it essentially gives you a scientific formula of what you do, and it allows you to be creative within that, because that's another thing that sometimes comes back. Oh, we're not creative enough. We don't know. We don't possibly know what we could talk about, and how do we know what we're going to talk about? Well, this is the point. If you start thinking about it in these little chunks and these little sections with these particular prompts, you're going to start to get quite a clear picture very quickly of how and who embodies all of these keywords and who tells the most powerful story. I mean, as I say, a lot of the time the myths around that are, we must always, we're doing a product video or we're doing a promotional video about this particular company, we must talk to the CEO. And actually we challenge that often by saying, no, not necessarily.
Yeah, no, definitely. I guess, we've spoken before about, a good first step is to kind of get some of this stuff in-house. If you work you've got what kind of people within your workforce that are able to kind of take some of this stuff on and get involved. That's a good kind of first point. I'm guessing there's probably a lot of people as well. Maybe they haven't got so many staff, or maybe they just don't have the skill sets within their organization or business to do that. And in that case, they're probably thinking to, maybe I need to kind of outsource and kind of work with someone. As with any kind of service, looking to find people to work with can be a bit of a minefield sometimes. It can be a bit kind of overwhelming. What advice would you give to a business or a small business owner when it comes to kind of looking for someone to work with around video creation, and what would be some good things to kind of look out for?
Sure. Yeah. Well, I mean, this goes a little bit back to video production, sort of generally, I suppose, not necessarily about storytelling, but I think what you'll do is you'll get a really key understanding whether you're working with what I would class as a videographer as opposed to, say, maybe a storyteller, in that you want someone who's prepared to listen, and you want someone who's prepared to ask questions of you. If you have someone who I would say would maybe be set in the old way of doing things, who will come in, listen to you, go, what do you want? Yep, got it. And then literally just go out and do that. Whilst that might sound like that's great, he just did exactly what I wanted, he's not necessarily going to provide you with the strongest possible outcome in my mind, because there are task focused and they're not goal focused. They're not actually saying, why do you want to do this? What do you want to get out of it?
Yeah.
Because that's really important, because, you know, a lot of the time when we have customers, whether I'm telling a story, whether we're telling stories for customers, if we focus on the how we do things, it's not necessarily going to mean we get what we're trying, we achieve the outcome and the goal. And a lot of clients come to us and they want a particular thing. They want a film, but it's not the film that they want. They want to sell a service or a product, or they want to get lots of people joining up to their charitable event or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
So actually that's what they want. How we get them there is actually not necessarily, anything to do with filmmaking, but what cameras we use or what lenses we use or what story we tell necessarily, but we've got to get them to the end result. So you want someone who comes on board with that in mind, someone who is actually thinking about what you're trying to achieve and how he can best help you achieve it, or she help you achieve it. If you want someone, and therefore, as I say, to be that sort of some focused on the results, not focused on the process, and they need to be prepared to listen and ask questions that potentially positively challenge you to get you there. And I think that's that. I mean, I always say that as well. If something, a price is too good to be true, if it's, they say that whole thing about if something's too good to be true, it probably is, and again, I do stress that there's a huge range of prices out there. That's not to say there aren't fantastic people doing great things at a low price, but I would always say just be a little bit wary of those sort of things. If someone comes in with a very low price, they also probably aren't going to take the time that it's necessary to fully understand you and your business, or your message, or whatever it is you're trying to say. So I think those things all quite kind of go hand in hand.
Yeah. And as you say, just go out and meet people, connect with some people, have those initial conversations. And, it's like anything, you'll get kind of a sense of who's a good fit for you and your personality, because with all sense and purposes, you've got to work with this person for a considerable amount of time as well. So it's got to be someone that from a personal level you kind of can connect with as well.
Yeah, it's really collaborative. It's very much a case that you need to be able to kind of get on the right level with someone about these sort of things.
And I guess to give someone kind of a rough outline of how that relationship kind of pans out when you work with clients, what kind of steps are there kind of set steps like consultations, then the kind of the shooting sessions, and then sort of meetings in between? How does that usually work, or is it kind of tailored depending on the client?
It does a little bit, but often we have a process that we follow, which I said to you before. We're big applicants participants or practitioners of this particular style of filmmaking, and a lot of the time it's just about listening. For us, straight away, there's a big listening phase. So we have particular milestones along the whole thing, but first thing we do is we do keywords and purpose. So we try and establish what the purpose of the whole thing is and what the keywords are going to be for this particular project. We actually get the customers working on that. We send them out a little worksheet so they can start brainstorming. We do the same process, and then we get together and we kind of compare notes. We have a little chat through all the different concepts, and we start kind of brainstorming a little bit. We normally then do a presentation. So we have sort of various milestones that, if you will, that sort of lead us through the process. And the great thing about that is that the whole way along, as a customer, you understand where we are in the process, and you know how that progress is being made, and it's not sort of just off into the ether and he's doing something and a great film comes back. It's like we have our actionable steps, and also along that, it gives us the opportunity to make sure that we're checking in with the customers regularly, and we're still on board with their vision in the right way. So it's all about that communication again. And once we've found the keywords and the purpose, we then start to look at the characters, the heart of the story, and then we go into plot and storyboarding. And so, as I said, I think earlier on, at least 50% of the entire production is probably spent in the planning phase and the story finding phase, where we're going to really nail down what it is we're going to shoot, so that when we come to shooting, we know exactly what we need, who we need to shoot, how we need to shoot it, and we can be very intentional around that process, because the planning stage is often not the most expensive part of the whole process. That when you're into production and post-production, that's when costs normally escalate quite dramatically. So from a customer's point of view, it's great for them to have that clarity that this is what's going to happen. This is the stages we're going through in the most efficient process possible. and we know we're not going to be wasting time and running up big bills waiting for someone to find something in post because he didn't know where it was. And it also means that we can clearly define deadlines as well. So it makes you very focused on achieving something by a particular time, because you can lay out this process. And then obviously editing and delivery and all that sort of stuff comes after that. But delivery is actually an important point, because that's where we take a lot of pleasure in the delivery phase, because that's when we can actually see results for our customers. And whether that, as I say, and actually just anyone telling story, it's great to see the results that they get when they tell a powerful story.
And touched on that, those results as well. It'd be interesting to kind of hear, because I know that you kind of work with quite a varied kind of mixture of different kind of businesses when you create these films for them. Can you speak about a few kind of benefits that you've kind of seen your clients experience off the back of creating some of this content with really great stories?
Yeah, I think it's again, it's about having created a connection. It's about getting this lovely, strong engagement and with our audience, whoever that might be, whether it is, as I say, as a business or a personal related thing. If you're able to do something that is a remarkable story, and you can craft a narrative that transports people, like we said, that you're going to get this stronger engagement. And we've seen it with, when you put out social media posts for your customers, that, just getting way more likes, way more views, way more shares that they would normally have got, that they turned around to us and said, well, for example, we work with a fairly big public school, who we absolutely love working with. They're so fantastic with us, and we get a bit of free reign to kind of almost do what we like in terms of coming up with concepts, which is lovely. But they had some really great stuff. We did a film for them main sort of promotional film for them 3 years ago now, nearly, and it had 24,000 views in the first 24 hours. So it was staggering, actually, the engagement. I mean, we knew it was going to be, it was well told, but we didn't realize it was going to be that well connected. And people said that they had lumps in their throat after watching it. They were sort of tearing up. They were so emotionally driven. People were saying, I already send my children there and I want to send my children there again. I already sent them there, but I was so driven to want to send my children there. I was looking for other children to kind of send to the school as well, because I was just so charged up with it. And I think that comes, there's clear communication. We've had customers who have had real shifts in perception as well. So they've potentially been quite a controversial topic, and we've produced a story around it that shifted people's mindsets, and actually people are starting to we're starting to go, actually, I hadn't thought of it like that before. Yes. And that's great. That's inspiring change and real action. So I think that's one of the benefits, or some of the benefits we've seen. But certainly, again, for a lot of our customers as well, we tend to work with customers who really they start generating more leads. In terms of a business sense, they start generating more leads. They start generating more conversational channels between them and their customers. And we've definitely had clients who've gone on to do very well from a sales point of view, because money invested has come back to them. I'm a strong believer that if you're doing something for your business, whether it's a post on Instagram, whether it's whatever, it has to return on its investment. And I think this helps you kind of guarantee you're going to get a much stronger return than if you just went out and did the easiest thing that you could possibly do, which would be just point and shoot at something and not really create that connection.
Yeah. This podcast is called Make Today Count. And the reason for that is that, my goal was that I want to engage kind of people in conversations about things that maybe they hadn't come across before, that could kind of help the business or their lifestyle or all different areas of their life. And for them, after that conversation, for them to kind of take away one kind of small step. And I think people will be really excited to kind of get going with a lot of this stuff and sort of think about ways and brainstorming ways they can kind of involve stories in what they're doing with their marketing. But what I'd love is that if we can maybe talk about maybe if there's just one small step, not going full pelt and trying to do too much and then maybe come across a hurdle and then just giving up, but just one small step that someone could do tomorrow to kind of get them on the right path. What would you say, Alex?
I think a little bit like we just said before, I think spend some time, just be mindful, which I think is supposed to be quite easy at the moment to do if you're sort of inside and not able to get out necessarily. But just think about your big three things. Think about the big three things for your story, your business, and what do those big three things look like? Look at the keywords as well as another thing. So look at that early planning phase. Start thinking about the questions that you want to ask yourself to create these particular keywords, to define that purpose. What are you trying to say? and why do you want to say it? That's quite a key thing just to kind of go away and think about. And it could be a greater overarching thing for your overall message, your overall business, your overall mission in life, whatever it might be. Or it can just be for individual little elements of those things. We have a great thing over on our Instagram page at the moment. We're doing a series called The 7 Types of Story, and go check it out. There are 7 types of stories that we commonly tell, and they will hopefully be little inspiring things that you can think about to drive you in a particular direction. So whether that's telling an impact story, or what we call a vision story, or a value story, or a why story, and they're all explained there. But you can try and lock down one thing that you'd like to tell a story about, and then try and put some of these processes into that sort of pipeline, and start coming up with some ideas around it. And I think once you start doing that, actually, it starts to free flow. It's very hard to get going. I appreciate that, but once you start, you'll end up kind of coming up with more ideas, and how they all work and resonate with one another.
Yeah, and I think it's like anything, once you just start, as you just say, you'll be quite surprised about how this stuff just starts to come out of you. I think sometimes the perception of how long it's going to take is something that's worse than actually when you go through it and start to write some notes down. So I encourage people to go out and get cracking with that. Obviously, you've got lots of work going on with clients and existing clients and new clients at the moment. But is there anything else particularly that you'd like to kind of share with listeners that they can kind of connect to? I know that you do a lot of, as well as a lot of the filmmaking, there's a lot of stuff that you do around kind of training and that as well for people that are kind of involved in some of this stuff. Yeah,
so we do. I mean, we it's funny because this is the core thing that we like to do, is it was obviously produce films for people. We don't, because of the nature of them, that we like to go that a little bit deeper. We don't necessarily get to do as many of them. We try to almost limit the amount that we do, just so that we're not inundating. We're giving every single story our full effort, but we do little bits and pieces around that. And one of the things we're doing is training and consulting, and we are just simple things where it might be running a workshop or giving people access to come and talk to us and share their ideas and say, what do you think about this? And did you X, Y, and Z? So offering sort of consulting around that to help people outline what it is that they're trying to say and how they're trying to say it, and giving them essentially the tools sort of mentally to go and do that, but not necessarily getting involved in production. So we're helping people that way too. But sort of slightly aside from story, because as I say, we do video production generally, what we're finding is, particularly in the delivery side of things, people get this great film and they go, where do I go with it now? What do I do with it? So we've actually taken some time. We're big advocates of YouTube and how it can be used for marketing and how it can be used for getting a message out there. But people aren't using it properly. People very often dump stuff on YouTube and expect it to work. And it'll work. It's linked to Google, SEO, it will happen. And it doesn't always happen like that. So I try and say to people, look, if you need help around YouTube, we have a number of different ways that we can help, whether it's just sort of basic advice, building up to being fully involved, managing a YouTube channel for people. So we offer a sort of full range of services on that, because I think managing that element is almost as important as coming up with something that's really powerful, because you can have something that's really powerful, and if you don't know how to get it out there, then you're going to struggle. So that goes down to things like, do I need subtitles on my video, and do I need X, Y, and Z? Do I put this here? Should I put that there? When should I release it? All this sort of stuff. So we're doing that for people as well. And then a sort of slightly strange aside product from everything, all this, although it's still to do with video production, is online courses. Something we're doing a lot of at the moment, actually, with people who are experts in their particular field, experts in their particular niche, who have something that they can teach, an actual valuable product that they can kind of experience that they can build on, that will add value to someone who maybe is just starting out, and I'm sure people are seeing quite a sort of abundance of these starting to come out. But it's a really nice way of a business essentially adding a different type of revenue to their profit and loss balance sheet, etc., because they've got another thing that is essentially evergreen. Once they've created the content, they can put it out there and it just does its thing for them. But often what happens is people, they know what they know, and they know it really well, and they can teach it brilliantly, but they can't necessarily put the production together from a video point of view, or they don't know how to structure things, they don't know how to set it up, and equally they don't know how to then market it and scale it and deliver it to a particular platform. So we've started sort of doing a bit of that, and that's been really powerful and rewarding as well, because you can still, believe it or not, build story into that, and we're seeing how that can apply to people's messages and businesses that they're putting out there.
Yeah, yeah, and we'll link all those up in the show notes on the show notes page as well, so people can kind of
Amazing,
get in
thank
touch
you.
with those as need to. But generally, what's the best way to get in touch with you, Alex, on kind of social media, website, that kind of stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've got website, and people will wonder how we spell it, but we're saying Depiqd. It's DEPIQD.co.uk. That's the main website, and it's the same on pretty much Facebook and Instagram. We've got facebook.com/Depiqd, Instagram.com/Depiqd. Twitter's the same. LinkedIn, you can actually search for Depiqd as well there. But I'm personally on Instagram as the Alex Cameron, and LinkedIn as the Alex Cameron as well. And yeah, so we're on those channels. And if you want to tune into our YouTube channel, we're starting to ramp up our own YouTube channel a bit more at the moment, giving out hopefully helpful free advice and tips on all of this type of stuff. Then we're on Depiqd Video Production Marketing on YouTube. So youtube.com, Depiqd Video Production Marketing, and you hopefully should see us there.
Perfect. So guys, if you're listening to that and everything that we've spoken about is kind of really resonated with you, that's something you want to kind of get into or learn more about, please get in touch with Alex around that. Alex, thank you so much for your time today.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
It's been really insightful. And I know that, there's a lot of people out there that are probably pondering on the fact of, what do I need to do to make my kind of video content, especially more engaging? I think there's lots of tips that they can kind of take away from that. One of the things that I kind of like to finish up on the podcast is just giving some gratitude back, and we've known each other for quite a long period of time now through weddings and all that kind of stuff.
Yes.
But one thing that's been kind of consistent from you and the stuff that you've been putting out is you've always been kind of leading whatever you've been doing. You've been sort of at the forefront of some of that stuff locally for where we are in this part of the country. From when it was wedding films, the stuff that you were putting out was kind of you were one of the first people to be more kind of cinematic in your approach, and kind of that's followed by the people getting involved. And I think that is kind of mirrored in what you're doing now with the more commercial work. You're looking for something different. You're looking for that deeper connection, and again, especially locally to where we are outside of London, you're kind of leading that as well. So thank you for doing that. Thank you for giving people. Thank you for giving people, I guess, choice as well, because as well, and also, with a lot of the training that you've been doing as well, just thank you for kind of helping people out. It's really appreciated by all.
No, that's very kind of you, and it's a pleasure. I do genuinely love helping people, and if we produce stuff that is of value because it helps them do something with their business or create a call to action that empowers people to do X or whatever, then that's smashing. And it's lovely to hear stories like that when people are coming back and saying that they've managed to do something that they wouldn't do before because we help, which is great. So thank you very much.
So guys, if you've listened to this conversation, we'd really like to hear your comments and your thoughts around what we've spoken about today. Please feel free to get in touch with us directly, either at Ross Dean Photo or Alex Cameron. And if you get the show notes pages, you'll find all those links to where you can do that. But also, if you've really enjoyed this, we'd really love you to share a review on iTunes or wherever you hear your podcast. Just head on over to those pages and leave a review. It's really important that we kind of be able to share these conversations with as many people as we can. And some of the best ways that we can do that are through reviews and sharing. So equally, if you know someone that's kind of into their video production, or even if they're business owners looking to incorporate video at a much deeper level, or maybe in a different way, we'd really appreciate if you could share this conversation with them. But until next time, I've been Ross Dean. This has been Make Today Count, and I'll see you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.